endured on Roxburgh Road last year.
I'm glad you're out of that place, Jenny.
Dad frowned.
I worried about you all the time while you were living there. It was such an awfully dark and dismal road with those back entrances where anyone could have been waiting to jump out at you.
Dad, stop treating me like a little girl. I tried again to find some bounce on the bed, but without much success.
I'm not, darling. I just think if you're at Cambridge, you should be taking full advantage of living in these fabulously historic buildings instead of some dingy backstreet terrace, making the most of being right here in the midst of it all.
You know your father never got over ending up at a Midlands Poly rather than a university. Mum laughed. Just indulge him a bit, Jen. Let him live the dream with you a while longer. I think he's done all right for himself despite that, don't you? And he's got 3 years of Jeremy being somewhere to indulge himself from next year. The three of us glanced at my 17-year-old brother, who was now slumped, eyes closed, in the one somewhat tired-looking armchair and laughed.
I've brought you one of these new mattress toppers,
Mum said, rummaging around in a bin liner as I jumped off the bed and wandered over to look at the view from my window, hoping to get a glimpse of the Trinity College clock, chapel fountain, or the statue of Henry VIII. I was over the moon I'd been allocated Great Court for my final year at Cambridge. I loved the feeling of actually living within the history of the place, to be a part of what was reputed to be the largest enclosed courtyard in Europe, completed in the early 17th century. Disappointed that I couldn't see the actual chapel fountain itself, I was about to turn back to the room and suggest Jeremy might like to get the hell off my bed, where he'd now moved himself to, and make himself useful, when I both heard and saw a crowd of students gathered in the court below. I was immediately drawn to the dark head of the taller of the two men whose arm was thrown nonchalantly round the shoulders of a tiny brunette. Lucky girl, I thought wistfully as the dark-haired man, obviously sensing he was under scrutiny, looked directly up at my window. He apparently didn't see anything of interest and immediately gave all his attention back to the girl at his side, turning her towards himself and kissing her so thoroughly I felt myself grow quite hot with lust. Had I finally found Byron? 2 years previously, after A-levels and wildly excited about leaving home and taking up the offer of 3 years at Cambridge to study English literature, I'd taken the usual flight with my parents and Jeremy in order to spend the summer at our house in Kefalonia. 3 weeks in, and bored with the premise of yet another day sitting under the relentless, seemingly inexhaustible heat of the Greek August sun, I decided I needed some time to myself, and had taken the early morning 3-hour ferry and bus ride from the island across the water to Missolonghi. I'd crossed to the mainland lots of times before, of course, but always accompanied by my parents and Jeremy, who they'd inevitably had to entice with promises of ice cream or coke in order to get him to visit the historical sites for which Missolonghi was famous. Now, with a sense of freedom and independence, I looked across at the breathtaking natural landscape of the mainland, feeling the hot, late-morning breeze in my hair as the ferry creaked its way slowly into port. English literature had always been my main love, but history came a close second, and that morning, suffused with the hot Greek sun and the heady tang of lemon balm, fresh bread and coffee fighting for precedence, I fell in love. With a 200-year-old man. Well, to be accurate, a man who had been dead almost 200 years. After a strong Greek coffee which set my pulse racing, I crossed over to the square of Markos Botsaris, stepping out of the heat and into the cool interior of the city's Museum of History and Art. Brizaki's interpretation of the welcome of Lord Byron to Missolonghi stopped me dead in my tracks. Here, then, was the man, the embodiment of all the erotic dreams that had taken me by surprise, as well as taking the place of the